Hi again folks, how you all doing? This is a Bachmann 4MT that was sent to me by Matthew. He's asked me to look at this because he says it's making a bit of a screeching noise. Let's give it a run and see. So yeah, it is making a bit of an intermittent squeak. I did notice that the front bogie wheels aren't turning, so they're maybe dragging on the track, which could possibly be the cause. But we'll get this into the shed and we'll have a look. It probably just needs some lubrication, but we'll certainly have to look at that front bogie. Righty-ho then, let's get a look at this Bachmann 4MT. So, this has been weathered obviously. This pipe or rod is out of place. That's supposed to fit into a tiny wee hole in there. So we'll sort that. The coal in here looks very out of place. It's very black, shiny plastic. So when I was running it on the layout there, you could hear it was making a kind of squeaking sound, and it was doing it at the same parts of the layout every time, round about the joins of my lift out section, which kind of tells me that it's something to do with the wheels, I think. And I also noticed that the front bogie wheels weren't turning. So if I have a look at this, yeah, the tender's become detached. It's got Bachmann's really stupid drawbar system. The front bogie, the wheels are locked up. They're not turning at all. So I think what's happening when it goes across the joins in the lift out section, the flanges on one wheel of the front bogie ride against the one of the rails, because the rails either side of the lift out section aren't 100% in alignment. They do kind of very slightly get a little bit out of alignment. And normally it's not a problem, but if the wheels aren't turning, as is the case here, yeah, I mean the flange could just suddenly start scraping against the rails, and you can actually see there's rubbing on this wheel here. So I think what we'll do is we'll get these brake rods off and we'll get this front bogie off and see if we can free it up, and then we'll have a look inside the locomotive. But I couldn't hear anything untoward coming from the locomotive apart from that squeak. Right, actually now that I look at this I can see exactly what's going on. It's the wheels are too close together, they've been squished. Pop that. There we go. Should have spotted that straight away. Right, we'll get this back and then we'll see if it squeaks. I think just when we're at it, we'll undo that. Undo that. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I think we might be all connected up with these pipes. So these pipes here are fixed onto the chassis, but they go up and they're fixed on to the top of the body. I'm going to try taking the underframe off. I'm going to take this front bogie off again. I'm not going to try to attempt to dismantle that, but if I can get into the drive gear and the axles, I can at least get some lubrication in there, just in case it needs it. Because it's possible, although I was just hearing that one squeak, it's entirely possible that this model makes other noises that I've just not heard. So it's an idea to get a look and get some lubrication in. And this pipe is connected to that. What's holding this in? Wires? Yeah, there's wires connected to the pickups on this underframe. So I can't remove the underframe unless I can get into here. Wow. So the more I look at this model, the more horrified I am. Let me just get the endoscope in and show you what we're dealing with here. So as I said, these pipes are plugged into the chassis there and there, but they've been glued. But the pipes run up and they're glued to the body up here, and they're plugged in, but you can also see the paint has sealed them as well. The valve gear on this side, this piece here, is connected to that. There's a little plug there. It doesn't look as if it's glued, and that piece is then plugged into the motion bracket there, and there's a rod here that appears to be plugged into the body there. So we need to disconnect that, and we need to disconnect these pipes. Right, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and stick this on the layout and see if it still makes that squeaking sound. If it doesn't, I'm very tempted just to leave this alone, because getting into this thing is just a nightmare. However, part of me would like this, kind of enjoys the challenge of trying to get into this thing. And, you know, there may be some of you out there who have one of these and want to figure out how to get into it as well. So it would be quite helpful, I suppose, to get into it. But, yeah, let's go and stick this in the layout again and see if it still makes that squeak now I've freed up the front bogie. So this doesn't seem to be squeaking anymore, which is good. So it probably was just that, you know, the front bogie wheels dragging on the track. But I really would like to get into this to get some fresh lubrication into it, just to be absolutely sure, because, you know, sometimes models don't start making screeching and funny noises until they're, you know, they've been run around the track a good few times. So I'll give this another good run just to see if it makes any noises. But yeah, I really would like to get into it. But it's nearly beer o'clock, so I shall leave it today. I'll have a think about it. I'm going to go and do some research on this, dig the service sheet out and stuff, and I'll maybe have a go at it tomorrow. I'll see how I feel. Okay, so this is the next day. I did a bit of research on this model online. Couldn't find very much, to be honest. It's an older model than I thought it was. The service sheet for it isn't very helpful, as is so often the case. I get asked about service sheets quite a lot, about why I don't use them, you know, when I first look at the model for, you know, figuring out how to get into locomotives. Why don't I use the service sheet? And the simple answer is, invariably, more often than not, service sheets aren't that helpful about how to get into models. Some models are, so like some Hellions will give you very specific instruction on how to remove the body. But usually, as is the case here, it's a simple instruction of remove the 2 screws indicated. And yeah, that wouldn't get you very far with this. In fact, I think if you just undone the screws and tried to pull the thing apart, you're going to end up breaking all sorts. But there's no detail. If you look at the service sheet, it's viewed from this side of the model, and it doesn't go into any detail about any of the pipe work or the wiring. So yeah, I find that a lot with service sheets. They're really more than a parts guide. If you want to identify a part number or something, then they're invaluable. But as to a guide to how to take a model apart, they're not that good. And sometimes, especially with some Hornby stuff, it can be really misleading, because even though the service sheet will say covers are numbers 3247 to whatever, you can't find the thing you're looking for. The model you're working on is slightly different than the one shown on the service sheet. So I tend not to look at them. I tend to just bash on and try and figure out a model myself, unless it's a a modern diesel like a Hellion or maybe an Acura scale or something, I would maybe look at the instructions because they can be very specific. But for an old Bachmann or an old Hornby, more often than not, it's fairly clear how the body comes away from the chassis. But with this one, yeah, I can see how it comes off, but it's an absolute nightmare. But I'm going to give it a go because I don't want to give this model back if it's still going to squeak, after running for 10 minutes or whatever. So I want to get in and give it, a good service and some fresh lubrication. So here we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is disengage this valve gear. So it unplugs there and comes out like that. And then we've got a little pipe here. To disengage. And then on this side, this is the crazy bit. I think if we unplug this, it kind of looks like it's been glued. Does that pipe come off the body? Maybe that's the way to do it. Don't want to damage the paintwork here. Ah, right. Got it, I think. If I can get that undone at the top there. Right. That pipe has now come loose. Got it. Right, okay. So that pipe is unplugged from there. So does that one do so as well? Yep. I've got that one out. And there we go. Right, okay, so not quite as bad as I thought. I didn't have to disconnect this pipe at the top. The two pipes just plug in to that thing there. So it's not quite as bad as I thought, but still very silly. We'll just put this pipe back. What a carry on. But there we go, we've got one of those motors. Yeah, the gears look a bit dry, so I'm glad I got into this. 8-pin blanking plate. Some oil into the motor bearings. And then we'll get some gear oil into the worm gear. Oil down into the spindles of the gears. And the other thing I want to do is to get a look at the axles. Right, hang on, wipe my fingers, because I couldn't remove this underframe without removing the body because the wires connected to the pickups are too short. I think what we'll do is we'll pop the motor. Right, pop the motor out like that, and that might just give me enough slack to pull the underframe down like that at the back. That should allow me to get some oil in. It is all very dry in there. So we'll get some nice clean oil into the axles. Okay, that's in, that's in, that's in. This should now pop back in. That. Yeah, I think to get the underframe off any further, I'd probably need to disconnect the wires on the DCC socket, which I don't want to be doing. But I've lubricated the axles, I've lubricated the gears and the motor bearings. that's pretty much all I can do. So we'll get this back together. Well, we'll try and get it back together. Usually find that taking things apart is a lot easier than putting them back together. To quote the good old Haynes manuals, fitting is reversal of removal. Yeah. Right, okay, so that will pop on there. And that pops on there. It's a tight fit. There. We'll get this rod plugged back in. We'll plug this in when we're at it. I think that's meant to go in there. I kind of suspect that this rod's never been right from new because it just doesn't fit into that hole. I need to make this hole a wee bit bigger. I could do with a pin vise here actually. Try that. There we go. It's in. It's a bit iffy though. Let me get a wee spot of glue in there just to hold it in place. Spot of glue. That's better. Right, try and get this valve gear. Oh, gee whiz. Try and get this valve gear back in position. Is that it? Yes. And finally, these pipes. Right, that fitted into there. Goes into there. And that into there. Right. Just crazy. Forgot about this pipe at the back. Right, that's got to go into there. I think that's us. Let's just put this on the track. I've heard people say that they prefer Bachmann models because they're not as fiddly as Hornby models. Well, you don't get much fiddlier than this. It's all back together. Get this tender hooked up. As usual, there's two positions for the tender. I did try this closer up and it looks a lot better, but on curves the roof's hit on the two halves. So it's going to have to be set to the furthest away one and the very shiny coal. There we are. So there we go, that's this Bachmann 4MT serviced, so it shouldn't be making any horrible noises anymore. So one last little thing I've done to this, I really wanted the locomotive and the tender to be closer coupled without these roofs hitting each other going round the curves, because what was happening, the corner of the roof here was hitting that on some curves, not always, but you know, if the track wasn't perfectly level, then this would catch on that, and the same at the other side. So I noticed this piece here is actually separate from this, and you can actually push it down a little bit. So I've stuck some little pieces of plastic between the two, between this piece here and this piece there, just to force this down a little bit. I just use a small cable tie, cut off some pieces, and shoved them in there just to bend this piece down, and I think that's done the trick. So that was fun and games. Let's pull it out the shed. Right, so there we are, that's this old Bachmann 4MT serviced and running okay. All that was really wrong with it was the front bogie wheels were on too tightly, but it did need some fresh lubrication in the axles and gears, and as you saw, getting this model apart is, well, it's a little fiddly, you could say. A fine example of putting detail over practicality once again, but once you know what to do, it's not too bad. Yeah, Bachmann really should have allowed a little bit more room between the locomotive and tender roofs. Close coupled, they tended to hit on the curves at times, but I shoved a couple of wee bits of cable tie between the two parts of the tender roof there, and that seems to have solved the problem. But otherwise, there we go, job done. I shall get this packed up and sent back to Matthew. Catch you later, folks.